Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about what is deschooling and why it's absolutely necessary that you do this not only at the beginning of your journey, but any time throughout your journey when you think you're getting too much of a schoolish mindset. Now, let me explain what deschooling is. Simply, it's an adjustment period. There's a lot more I have to tell you, but I like simple definitions. And then I will expand on what it is. But let me tell you one more thing too, because in the homeschool world, new homeschoolers get confused by terms because there's a lot of lingo to learn. And I have a lingo definition, dictionary, if you will, that you also get in this course. So be sure you study that. Some of the words I will use, I will try to explain them as I'm using them. Sometimes I may not remember to do that. So remember to look at the definitions, but again, as I go along, I'll try to explain those to you. New homeschoolers, and even some not so new, like to think deschooling is unschooling. And unschooling doesn't sound real comfortable to new homeschoolers, but I'm going to explain about what is unschooling in the module or the video where we talk about homeschool approaches. But just to keep it very simple and clear for you, unschooling is a homeschool approach. Deschooling is a process. Here's the difference. All homeschoolers need to deschool at one time or the other. If they don't do it in the beginning, sometime during their journey, you have to deschool. You have to disengage from a public school mindset if you are going to embrace the homeschooling lifestyle. And the other reason too is because burnout looms if you don't deschool. But not all homeschoolers follow the unschooling approach. Now, the reason that they get confused with the two terms and use them interchangeably is that deschooling uses a lot of the unschooling features during the process, which is why some deschool and then they choose to go into the unschool approach. So there's a lot of facets about unschooling that deschooling uses, and so that's why, again, there's some confusion in there. We're going to be talking about deschooling, and then when we get to the unschooling video, you'll see some of those features, those same features mentioned. Okay, so simply, I put it was disengaging. It's an adjustment period. All homeschoolers, I don't care where you're at in your journey, need to deschool. From the beginning, if you're in the middle of it, if you're at the end of it, we all have had to. And sometimes the more you homeschool and the more comfortable you are, sometimes the less you have to. Then sometimes you're like, I need to step away. I'm worrying about way too many things. I'm getting way too much of a public school mindset here. I'm only schooling 3 or 4 kids. I'm not schooling 30 or 40. I don't have a classroom. I don't need to be a teacher with a red little, pen to check off everything. We just have to step back and see how much easier homeschooling can be. Okay, so what do we do during this adjustment period and how long is it and why? Why is it important? Here's why. Here's why. If you leave public school, you need to decide when you left public school, or even if it was a private school, what about it was not working? It's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. Some people say, I don't like the environment. Some people say, I have a gifted child. I hear a lot more of that too when we come to homeschool. My child's gifted. They may be, or they just may be advanced. But the point is, they were bored in school because you couldn't adjust to their needs. Or perhaps a child has a special need and the schools weren't addressing it. Perhaps they're bullied, which is awful, awful. And not just by the students. Teachers can be the same way too. Not all teachers. I don't slam public school. That's not my style. But I do want you to know I am 100% proponent of homeschooling because I know it works. And that's what I'm here to tell you about, why you have to deschool. So what it means is to disengage. Step back and think, why am I homeschooling? What are the reasons important to me? Even writing them down. And this is why. You think they're real clear in your mind, and they probably are right now. But when you run against the first tough situation, it's so easy to go back to something that you think was working, and you forgot these feelings you have right now. And you think, oh, okay, well, it wasn't so bad now. It's really tough because my kid doesn't want to learn anything. They say they're not interested in anything. I'm getting all kinds of attitude. I don't know about this curriculum's not working. That's why it's important to stop right now and deschool and think, why am I wanting to homeschool? What about public school is not working? There's an example I read one time that I want to use with you that will really help you to understand this. See, when public school gets out of, it is ended, summer vacation is, wow, seems like it's a break, it's a fun time, we disengage from all learning, we spend hours around the pool, and we read, and we lounge, and we linger. That's what I'm talking about. You see how one completely disengaged from the public school mindset? That is what deschooling is. And so for some families, it's going to look very different. Does it mean we're going to lounge around the pool all day? It may or may not for your family. It may or may not. Some kids have been so beaten down by public school, and they're exhausted as well as their parents. They need to take time to relax, to think, why do I want to homeschool? Why do I need to get off this public school treadmill? Because if you don't, and you continue to do what's not working, you're not going to have any success in homeschool. Homeschooling is a much more relaxed pace. Now, let me tell you something about myself. Let me get you to understand the full flavor of my personality. I'm not a relaxed person, okay? I like things organized. I like things laid out. I'm very routine oriented. Those are all my strengths. But they also can be weaknesses when I don't have flexibility or bend. And I was quite judgmental when I started. Yes, I'll admit it. Quite judgmental, thinking, oh, that's just dumb. We got to be doing some work instead of laying around or sleeping in. But see, I didn't fully appreciate how easy it really is to homeschool, how learning should be a delight, how it can be so much more relaxed, because I didn't want to give up my public school mindset. So what do we do during the deschooling process? Well, some seasoned veterans say you shouldn't even be looking for a curriculum. I don't really feel that way. I think that's the time to actually read about curriculum, but not by putting pressure on yourself to make a decision about what you're going to use. Also, think about routines in your life. What kind of routine are you going to have? What can you set up now? See, since I've homeschooled for many years, I've had many different routines in my household. When my kids were younger and they were up at 5 a.m., we all got up. I got started. I did school by 7. I was ready because the baby took a nap. He went back down. I was ready to school. I didn't worry about school teaching from 8 to 3. Okay, there's no homeschool police to come to your house to say you got to start by 8. Okay. Now, with that being said, as they grew older and they got to middle school, upper elementary, and even high school, our schedules have changed through the years. We even homeschooled on a Saturday because that was my schedule. My husband worked. He was off during the week. We flipped it around. See, that's where you switch to what I was talking about earlier, family-centered. So think, what kind of routine can I realistically do with my family? Now, I'm not saying what you want to be. For example, if you're not a morning person, okay, you don't have to make yourself be a morning person, but you probably do need to say, okay, I need a fixed time so I'll be motivated to start. Okay, does it have to be 8 o'clock? Absolutely not. A lot of homeschoolers like to start at 9 o'clock. Some work, they prefer to do their homeschool in the afternoon. That never worked for my family. I always wanted to get homeschool in first. We always gave homeschool first in our day. But there's some years I had to work and I wasn't able to do that. But where all possible, I thought, okay, I want homeschool first in my day. So what's your routine going to be for your family? What days do you see that you run your errands? Could you have that a day off? Could you have a 4-day week and be more productive on those days instead of a 5-day week? See, these are things you need to think about. Also, how many classes do I really want to have outside of homeschooling? I encourage you, not very many, because it can be very stressful to address every kid's needs the first year. I encourage you to keep it on the low down, keep it relaxed. You can even sign up for classes halfway through the year. Art classes, co-op, but the mistake I see many homeschoolers make in the deschooling process is they sign up every class their kid can possibly do. And then they're burnt out, like I said, about 6 months and keeping the roads hot. You really want time to think, how much do I realistically want to do this year? If you're tired and beat down by public school and it's been extremely stressful leaving, then take more time. About how much time to deschool? Well, in the past, there's different books that have talked about the deschooling process. And I think this really is a good rule of thumb too. I would tend to agree with it. But they say about a month for every year of public school. Yeah. You see how long? Yeah. I'm not talking weeks. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Because sometimes when you have older kids, a shorter deschooling process is necessary because they need to go ahead and get started to a routine, but keep it very relaxed. Okay, other things, create a routine, work on a menu, sleep in, read, visit museums, go to the park, go camping. You see, what you've done is you've pushed away from public school and say, I reject that arbitrary schedule and the way you're doing things, and I need to focus on learning about my kids. And what those, even though they're fun things to do, this is the key point. When you're with your children, you finally get to know them. Yes, it's not that you don't know them now, but you don't know them as well as, say, a teacher would in a learning environment. This is why, because she has her teacher hat on. That makes sense. So now you kind of have a different hat. And you're like, oh, I didn't know they really like learning about this, or I knew they were good at this, but I didn't really know they liked this subject, or they were good at this concept. By reading, taking time going to the library, asking them when you start school, what are some topics you're interested in studying about? All these conversations during the day helps your family to de-school and adjust and get off the public school treadmill. And even the fact that you don't start public school when the public school area in your schools, in your city starts, that even gives the kids another telltale sign. Oh, well, all my friends are starting school. Oh, okay, well, that's not when we start our year. You're really taking control of your homeschool that way because you're saying, I'm going to de-school, detox, decompress. Okay? It's not lazy. It doesn't mean you're lazy. None of those things. But homeschool is not as hard as public school. And you'll learn more of those through this course. You'll learn more of those tips through this course as I share more facts and the different modules that I have. Okay, here's another thing that also I want you to be aware of during the deschooling process. And that is, what happens is that I hear parents say, I give my kid a worksheet and they're perfectly happy with it. They just really like it. Well, they do, because that's what they're used to. That's what they're comfortable with. I hear some parents say, my kids don't want to learn anything. Yeah, probably so, because they've not been given that freedom, that opportunity. It takes a while for them to deschool. It takes a while for parents to deschool, sometimes longer than the kids, because they instantly want feedback. Well, this isn't working. Here's this curriculum. Here's this worksheet. It's not working. Well, you haven't really changed anything. You haven't really included the child in the learning process. You haven't individualized the curriculum to suit them and you, what you want, your goals, your family's goals for your children. So sometimes, hey, well, my kids like worksheets. Well, that's the only thing they know. They feel comfortable. They want to go back to something they already know. And so next thing you hear, oh, they want to go back to public school because it's comfortable. But does that mean it's better? That it's a better approach? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It just means that's what they're used to because they haven't decompressed. So this is a time you would say, I'm making a list of things we want to learn about this year. See, then the kids start thinking differently. They're like, oh, I have some say in this? You mean I'm not just a passive learner being barked out commands to? You mean I can be an active learner and I have a process and have some say in this process? See, that's the difference. That's what deschooling is. So families do many different things. I have a handout also on what to do for deschooling, some activities, but families do many different things during it. Some of them rest, some of them, like I said, go camping, some of them don't do anything. Some just relax at home, some get caught up in doing repairs at the house that they haven't been able to do. Some declutter their kitchen to get ready for school year. I always liked reading about curriculum. I liked reading about homeschool. I have stacks and stacks of books about homeschool. I encourage you to read about homeschool. I encourage you to read my book. I encourage your kids to read. Check out programs with them. Check out, just go check them out and say, okay, well, how much does this cost? How much does this art class cost? What days? But don't sign up for anything. Just check it out. And for goodness sakes, try to find field trips in your area, other homeschoolers, whether you join them online on Facebook groups or whether you go and you meet. Most homeschool groups have like a free day where non-members can come and check them out. Go do that. Go check them out. But just be very careful what you jump into because it can still add stress to your year. Okay, so routine, read, I call it the 3 R's, routine, read, relax, and just think about 1 month for every year that your kid was in public school. Now, if your kids are very small and you're starting out and they've never been to public school, guess what? Yep, you still need to do school. You're probably wondering, why do I need to do that? Well, because probably like me, your background was in public school. Okay, so you're coming with those public school mindsets thinking this is the way school is supposed to be. So you too need to grab books, think about your routine. Okay, I think this is going to work on this schedule. Okay, what are some other things I want to have done in this house before we start and I focus on teaching them? You know, what month is actually good for us to start? What month is good for us to quit? Just because school goes from August to May or June doesn't mean that's the school year you have to follow unless you live in a state that requires specific month that you start and stop. Okay? But otherwise than that, you can take off the months you want, you can take off the weeks you want. I do have a form on my website that you can track weeks of schooling. Some prefer to take off during the summer. I know here in Texas where I live, we always school during the summer. It's just too hot to do anything else. When the weather turned cool and everyone was back in school, we took field trips. We break then so we could be outside more and enjoy some nature. Okay, so it's thinking all of those things. It's disengaging, getting off the public school treadmill, it's relaxing, and then say, okay, this is going to be the month we start. This is going to be the date we start our school. This is what works best for my family. It's addressing each of your kids' needs. It's getting to know your children during this time. When they're away from you, you didn't get to know them like that. It's getting to know them during this time of deschooling. Okay,